Welcome to Universal Recap. Today, I'm going to recap a Spanish social science fiction horror film from 2019 named The Platform. The movie begins with the preparation of a luxurious meal, while a narrator explains that there are three kinds of people: those above, those below, and those who fall. A young man named Goreng wakes up in a cell made of concrete and metal, where he meets an older man named Trimagasi. Trimagasi informs Goreng that they are on level 48 of the Hole, a prison with numerous levels where food is distributed through a platform that moves down through the cells. Goreng wonders what they will eat, and Trimagasi responds that they will consume whatever the people above leave behind. Goreng looks through a hole in the floor of his cell, revealing that there are many cells beneath theirs, and the same number above. When he asks Trimagasi how the system works, the older man simply responds, "They eat," adding that it can be easy or difficult depending on which level you're on, and that level 48 is not too bad. When Goreng inquires about how many levels there are beneath them, Trimagasi says there are not many, but soon there will be fewer. Goreng tries to communicate with those in the cells beneath them, but Trimagasi stops him, saying that the people above will not answer either. Goreng has been in the hole for several months, and he knows they will remain on level 48 for precisely 1 month. The platform with scraps of food descends through the hole in the ceiling, stopping at their cell. Trimagasi eats eagerly, while Goreng is hesitant to eat what others have already consumed. However, he finds a whole apple and saves it for later. After the platform rises, Goreng remarks that the room is getting hotter. Trimagasi informs him that the temperature will continue to rise until they boil to death unless he gives back the apple he took. Trimagasi adds that keeping any of the food is punishable by being burned or frozen to death. Goreng returns the apple, and the temperature returns to normal. Goreng tells Trimagasi that he wants to quit smoking and brought a copy of Don Quixote to read. Trimagasi questions whether Goreng chose to be in the pit voluntarily, but Goreng reveals that he agreed to stay in the pit for 6 months in exchange for a diploma. Trimagasi is spending a year in the pit, but he's not happy about it since he's not getting a degree. Trimagasi then tells Goreng his own story. He had bought a knife sharpener called Samurai Max but then saw an ad for a better product, the Samurai Plus. Frustrated, he threw his TV out of the window, killing an illegal immigrant who happened to be passing by. Trimagasi doesn't feel guilty about the incident since the man shouldn't have been there in the first place. Trimagasi then claims that there are at least 132 levels in the pit, but Goreng doesn't believe him. Goreng wants to convince the people above and below them to ration the food, but Trimagasi tells him that it's impossible. When Goreng tries to pass on the message to the people below, Trimagasi urinates on him in disgust. Goreng shows Trimagasi his copy of Don Quixote, and Trimagasi reveals that he brought the Samurai Plus as his personal item. The following day, a body falls through the hole, causing Goreng to panic while Trimagasi remains unfazed. Goreng tries to alert the other cells, but no one responds. Goreng eventually realizes that Trimagasi had cannibalized his cellmate. Just then, the platform arrives with a battered and bruised Asian woman named Mihuru. Despite Goreng's concern for her, Trimagasi reassures him that she is fine and explains that Mihuru descends the pit every month to find her son. To increase her chances of being paired with her son the next month, Mihuru kills her cellmate every month. The body that had fallen earlier was likely Mihuru's previous cellmate, who she had pushed. As the platform descends, the prisoners on level 49 attack Mihuru. Goreng tries to intervene, but Trimagasi warns him not to interfere, as they will only keep her for a few days. Mihuru kills her attackers in self-defense before continuing her descent. Once Mihuru is gone, Goreng begins reading Don Quixote to Trimagasi, and the two men gradually become friends over the next month. One evening, Trimagasi asks Goreng if he has faith in God. Goreng remains silent, but Trimagasi urges him to pray for their safety. He reveals that the room is filled with gas, which will cause them to fall asleep and wake up in a different cell. Trimagasi explains that he only has 1 month left in the pit and he doubts that Goreng will survive much longer. Trimagasi believes he deserves a degree for his time in the pit, and that he has earned it. Goreng asks Trimagasi the same question he was asked before, and Trimagasi replies, "I believe in it this month." Goreng wakes up to find himself bound and gagged in his bed. Trimagasi is in the room and informs Goreng that they have been reassigned to level 171. Trimagasi explains that hunger drives people insane, and since Goreng is younger than him, his meat is more desirable. However, Trimagasi confesses that he is hesitant to kill Goreng and will spare his life for at least a week. They hear screams from above as their fellow prisoners discover which level they have been assigned to. Bodies of other prisoners fall past them through the hole in the center of the room. Trimagasi removes Goreng's gag, and Goreng pleads for his life. Trimagasi tells him that their friendship was never meant to last. The platform arrives, holding empty plates, which Trimagasi throws in frustration. He explains that after 8 days, he will begin cutting strips of flesh from Goreng, but he will tend to the wounds each time so that Goreng does not bleed to death. Goreng tells Trimagasi that his death will not be accidental like the immigrants, and Trimagasi will be responsible for it. Trimagasi retorts that the responsibility lies with the ones above. Trimagasi keeps Goreng bound for the next 8 days, during which Goreng makes futile attempts to escape. On the 8th day, Trimagasi informs Goreng that the time has arrived for him to begin eating him. Goreng is too exhausted to resist, and he tells Trimagasi that he will hold him solely accountable for his death, not the circumstances, nor the prisoners above them. Trimagasi successfully cuts a piece of flesh from Goreng's leg when Miharu rides down on the platform and knocks Trimagasi unconscious with a wine bottle before using her samurai plus to slit his throat. She then frees Goreng, who fatally stabs Trimagasi. Goreng passes out and later awakens to see Miharu cutting into Trimagasi's flesh, which she feeds to both herself and Goreng. Before leaving, Goreng asks her the name of her son, but she remains silent. Goreng sustains himself using Trimagasi's body over the next month and experiences a hallucination of Trimagasi, who taunts him for the lack of respect and sympathy Goreng showed him. The hallucination claims that while they are both now murderers, Trimagasi is the more civilized of the two. At the end of the month, Goreng is gassed, and he dreams of having a sexual encounter with Miharu. Goreng wakes up to the sight of a dachshund puppy named Ramses II, who belongs to his new cellmate, Imahiri. He discovers that they are on level 33. Imahiri says that she brought Ramses II into the pit with her, and Goreng remarks that the dog will not survive in the pit. Imahiri then mocks Goreng for bringing a book and addresses him by his name, which confuses him. He asks her how she knows him, but she doesn't respond and allows him to smoke if he wishes. Goreng suddenly recognizes Imahiri and a flashback scene reveals that she had interviewed him prior to his admission about any allergies or dietary restrictions he may have. He was smoking during the interview, but Imahiri firmly told him he would not be allowed to smoke once he was admitted. She subsequently asked him what his favorite food was, to which he answered escargot à la bourguignon, snails with garlic butter, after Imahiri ominously explained that it would be added to the menu. Goreng remarks that people die in the pit every day, to which Imahiri clarifies that if everyone eats only what they need, the food would reach the lowest level. Goreng asks how many levels there are and Imahiri reveals that there are 200 levels. As they wait for the platform to arrive, Goreng criticizes Imahiri's decision to bring Ramses into the pit, arguing that the dog will inevitably die. When the platform arrives, Imahiri prepares 2 plates of food, one for herself and one for Goreng, while she feeds Ramses separately. Goreng expresses concern that Imahiri's rationing system could inadvertently cause the death of a child, but Imahiri insists that no children under 16 are allowed in the pit. As they eat, Goreng learns more about Imahiri's motivations for being in the pit and wonders if there is a way out. Goreng asks Imahiri how she can work for the administration, knowing what happens in the pit. She tells him that she believes in the system and that it is the only way to create a fair society. On the 15th day, Imahiri attempts once more to persuade the people below to ration the food, but her efforts are in vain. Goreng threatens to defecate on their food for the rest of the month if they do not comply, much to Imahiri's chagrin. She had hoped to reason with them rather than intimidate them, but Goreng insists that it was the only way. Although Imahiri tries to convince the people above, Goreng points out that he cannot threaten them as he cannot defecate upwards. The next day, a new prisoner named Miharu arrives on the platform, badly injured and barely conscious. As they care for her, the platform descends, and Miharu speaks for the first time in the film, saying, "It's cold." Goreng realizes that the temperature in the room is being lowered to freeze them to death. Ramses the dog saves the day by keeping a scrap of meat, which Goreng fights the dog for and then uses to trigger the temperature to return to normal. Miharu stays in their cell, and in the middle of the night, Goreng wakes up to a violent altercation between the 2 women. He breaks up the fight, and as an upset Imahiri breaks down in tears, he discovers that Miharu has killed Ramses. The following day, Miharu once again descends on the platform. Goreng tells Imahiri about Miharu's search for her son, but Imahiri responds that she wouldn't understand Miharu's situation as she doesn't have any children of her own. Meanwhile, Goreng watches in horror as Miharu stabs the prisoners in the cell below them. Imahiri recalls her interview with Miharu from 10 months ago, revealing that Miharu is an actress who came to the pit alone and has no children, but her personal item is a ukulele. She then shares with Goreng that she has been sending people to the pit for 8 years and was unaware of the pit's inhumane conditions until she came herself. Imahiri reveals her battle with cancer, taking off her shirt to show the scars across her chest, and explains that she joined the pit to fix the system when she discovered that her diagnosis was terminal. The following day, the platform arrives with a plate of escargot à la bourguignon, but Goreng divides the snails among the ration plates. Imahiri refuses to eat, claiming that it's Ramses II's day to eat. Goreng urges her to eat since they don't know what cell they'll be in tomorrow. Later, Goreng wakes up in cell 202 and discovers that many more cells exist below them, despite Imahiri's earlier claims. He finds Imahiri hanging from the ceiling and experiences hallucinations of Trimagasi and Imahiri urging him to eat her dead body. Distraught by the hallucinations, he refuses, eating pages from Don Quixote instead. However, he eventually gives in and uses the samurai plus left behind by Trimagasi to cut into Imahiri's flesh. The next morning, Goreng wakes up to find Miharu sleeping in the bed next to him but realizes it was just a dream when he wakes up screaming. He discovers that he is now in cell number 6 with a new cellmate, Baharat, a religious man who believes he can escape the pit. Baharat enlists the help of the couple on the level above them to escape, claiming that God has instructed him to do so. However, the woman on the upper level defecates on his face, causing Baharat to near fall to his death. Goreng saves him. Goreng had a dream of Trimagasi, who congratulated him on having only 1 month left before he is released from the pit. He convinced Baharat to ride the platform with him to persuade the other prisoners to ration their food and make weapons to defend themselves against hostile prisoners. Goreng estimated that there are around 250 levels altogether. Baharat asked what would happen if they ran out of food before reaching the lowest level, and Goreng said they would ride the platform back up. Baharat was initially hesitant but quickly agreed. The next day, they began their descent, and the couple on level 5 ridiculed them. Goreng decided they would only start distributing the food once they reached level 51 since the first 50 levels got to eat every day. One man on level 7, who had helped Baharat climb a few months before, pleaded to eat since he was on level 114 the previous month, but Goreng was unsympathetic to his situation. The man made racist remarks towards Baharat before attempting to take food by force, and an enraged Baharat killed him. From then on, the two men guarded the food fiercely from the prisoners on the first 50 levels. On one of the levels, they met Senior Brambang, a man in a wheelchair who appeared to have a history with Baharat. Bambang said that civility and discussion were more effective than violence and that their plan to break the system would be meaningless if the administration didn't realize what they had done. He suggested leaving a beautifully prepared plate of panna cotta untouched and sending it all the way back up to level 0 as a message for the administration. The two protected the panna cotta passionately and started rationing food once they reached level 51, attacking prisoners who tried to take more than their allotment. Goreng and Baharat continue their descent in the platform and soon discover that there are more than 250 levels, as they come across a dead man who was likely in the same cell as Miharu. They hear Miharu screaming and find her being attacked by 2 inmates, but despite their efforts to intervene, Miharu is fatally stabbed. The men continue their journey downwards, with no food left except for the untouched panna cotta. Eventually, the platform stops at level 333, and the men assume they have reached the lowest level. However, they discover a little girl hiding under a bed who resembles Miharu. The men feed her the panna cotta before passing out from exhaustion. Goreng experiences yet another dream involving Trimagasi, who praises him for his bravery in wasting the food from level 6 and inquires whether he plans to consume Baharat. He is then interrupted by an apparition of Imahiri, who tells him that Ramses II is the message, but Goreng is abruptly awakened by Baharat, who proclaims that the girl is the message. When Goreng looks over to the platform, he sees the little girl sleeping peacefully, confirming that she is, indeed, the message. Suddenly, he jerks awake, realizing that this conversation with Baharat was also a dream and that Baharat has passed away from his injuries. Upon discovering Miharu's daughter sleeping in one of the beds, Goreng wakes her up and brings her to the platform. Finally, when the platform reaches the lowest level, Trimagasi's ghost appears once more and urges him to leave with him. Initially, Goreng refuses, stating that he must ride the platform back up to level 0. However, Trimagasi argues that this is unnecessary since he is not the message. Goreng recognizes the truth in Trimagasi's words and gets off the platform with him. Together, they watch the sleeping girl ascend as they walk away. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment and let us know which film you want us to explore next. Take care.